It was supposed to be a Halloween party. Until she found out who he really was. The cider cup slipped from Stella's hands, amber liquid splashing across the hardwood floor. Her voice came out hollow, broken. My father. My father who you told me wanted nothing to do with us. Who you said was gone and wouldn't be coming back. Who I stopped asking about when I was 8 because it made you cry. Isabel's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces right there in that alcove, surrounded by the echoes of Halloween laughter. Stella. Her daughter's name caught in her throat. Which one of you is lying? Stella demanded, and those storm-gray eyes, Vincent's eyes, filled with an accusation that cut deeper than any knife. You said he wanted nothing to do with me, Mom. But he's here. So either you lied then, or he's lying now, and I need to know which. This was the moment 17 years of carefully constructed walls came crashing down. This was the night Isabel Morgan discovered that some ghosts don't stay buried. They show up at Halloween parties wearing masks, carrying scholarships in one hand and regret in the other. And sometimes, just sometimes, they force you to face the one question you've been running from for nearly 2 decades. Can broken people ever truly become whole again? If you've ever had to face someone from your past, someone who hurt you so deeply you thought you'd never recover, then you need to hear this story. Drop a like right now if you believe in second chances, and make sure you're subscribed to Mr. Stephen's Stories because what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew about forgiveness and redemption. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single moment of this journey. 3 hours earlier, Isabel Morgan sat in her small kitchen, staring at the witch's hat on the table like it was a summons to her own execution. The October sun was setting, painting the walls of her modest home in shades of amber and rust. 17 years she'd lived in this house. 17 years of raising Stella alone, of building a life from the ruins of her shattered dreams. Mom, you're not chickening out, are you? Stella appeared in the doorway, already transformed into a black cat, whiskers painted with precise artistic detail across her freckled cheeks. Her storm-gray eyes, so unlike Isabel's warm brown ones, sparkled with excitement. Isabel forced her lips into something resembling a smile. I'm just wondering if a witch's hat is really appropriate for a woman my age. You're 36, not 90. Stella crossed the kitchen and picked up the hat, plopping it onto her mother's head. Besides, Mrs. Rousseau said this fundraiser is crucial for the art program. My painting is in the silent auction, remember? You promised you'd be there when they announced the winners. There it was. The promise. Isabel had learned long ago that she couldn't break promises to Stella. Not when she'd already broken the biggest promise of all by choosing a man who would abandon them both. I remember. Isabel stood, smoothing down the simple black dress she'd paired with the hat. 30 minutes, then we leave. 1 hour. Stella was already heading for the door, cat ears perched perfectly on her dark hair. And you have to actually talk to people, not just stand in the corner like last year's spring concert. I talk to people. Mrs. Chen doesn't count. She's practically family. The drive to the Ashford estate took 12 minutes through streets lined with decorated houses, jack-o'-lanterns grinning from porches, fake cobwebs stretched across manicured lawns. Riverside went all out for Halloween, and the fundraiser at the historic Victorian mansion was the social event of the season. Isabel had been avoiding it for years. The mansion loomed against the darkening October sky, every window glowing with amber light and flickering candles. Autumn leaves scattered across the cobblestone driveway, crunching under their feet as Isabel pulled her cardigan tighter. The bass from inside thrummed through the walls. Laughter, music, the chaos of a Halloween celebration in full swing. She shouldn't have come. Mom, you promised. Stella's voice pulled her back from the edge of retreat. Mrs. Rousseau organized this whole thing for the art program. You can't bail now. Isabel studied her daughter's eager face. That determined set of her jaw, the way she tilted her head when she was worried. Features that reminded Isabel of someone she'd spent 17 years trying to forget. I'm here, aren't I? Isabel adjusted the witch's hat. 30 minutes. 1 hour. Stella was already pulling her toward the ornate front door. The silent auction ends at 9, and I want to see if anyone bid on my painting. The moment they stepped inside, Isabel's senses were overwhelmed. Cinnamon and apple cider, expensive perfume mixing with the scent of costume fabric. Conversations layered over a playlist of Gothic orchestral music. The fundraiser had drawn half the town, everyone masked or costumed, unrecognizable in the warm shadows. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across walls adorned with vintage Halloween decorations. Elegantly dressed vampires mingled with elaborate skeleton costumes. A woman in a Marie Antoinette getup laughed at something a man dressed as Edgar Allan Poe was saying. The whole scene felt surreal, like stepping into another world. There you are. A voice cut through the noise, and Isabel recognized it before seeing her. Mrs. Rousseau swept toward them, dressed as Frida Kahlo, complete with flower crown and painted unibrow. Stella, your piece has 3 bids already. And Isabel, I'm so glad you came. She grasped Isabel's hand warmly. There's someone I'd like you to meet. He's been instrumental in funding our program expansion. Before Isabel could protest, before she could manufacture an excuse, Mrs. Rousseau was guiding them through the crowd. They passed a table laden with caramel apples and decorated cookies, moved through a cluster of parents discussing college applications, navigated around a group of teenagers taking selfies. Then they reached the gallery space. It was a converted sunroom, walls temporarily transformed to display student artwork. Isabel spotted Stella's piece immediately. A haunting watercolor of a lighthouse in a storm, all grays and blues and violent beauty. The lighthouse stood alone against crashing waves, light barely visible through the tempest. It was technically brilliant but emotionally devastating. Her daughter had painted loneliness so perfectly it hurt to look at. And standing before it was a man. He wore a simple black mask, the kind that covered only the eyes, paired with an expensive dark suit. Nothing elaborate, no costume really. Yet something about his stance made Isabel's breath catch in her throat. The way he held himself, shoulders back but not rigid. The angle of his head as he studied her daughter's work, tilted slightly to the left. The way his right hand rested in his pocket while his left hung at his side. No. It couldn't be. Her heart began to race. Blood rushed in her ears. The room suddenly felt too hot, too crowded, too small. This is our mystery benefactor. Mrs. Rousseau's voice seemed to come from very far away. He's requested to remain anonymous, but he's personally funding scholarships for 3 students this year. Sir, this is Stella Morgan, the artist, and her mother Isabel. The man turned. Even with the mask covering half his face, even after 17 years, even though every logical part of her brain screamed that it was impossible, Isabel knew. She knew in the way her heart stopped, then kicked into overdrive. Knew in the sudden weakness in her knees, in the ringing in her ears, in the way 17 years collapsed into this single moment of recognition. The work is extraordinary. His voice was deeper than she remembered, roughened by time and perhaps regret, but unmistakably his. You have a gift for capturing emotion in nature. The isolation of that lighthouse, it's profound. Raw. Like you've lived it. Stella beamed, completely oblivious to the fact that her mother had stopped breathing. Thank you so much. I've been working on a whole series about solitary structures. Lighthouses, abandoned churches, lone trees in empty fields. I'm calling it the Beautiful Alone Collection. The man, Vincent, it had to be Vincent, stepped closer to the painting. The Beautiful Alone. That's a perfect title. Loneliness doesn't have to be ugly, does it? Sometimes it's a choice we make to protect ourselves from storms. Exactly. Stella's enthusiasm bubbled over. Most people don't get that. They think the series is depressing, but it's not. It's about strength in isolation, about standing firm when everything around you is chaos. Isabel couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Could barely process what was happening. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Vincent De Luca was in Florence, or Paris, or wherever brilliant architects went to escape the consequences of their choices. He wasn't here, in Riverside, standing 3 feet from the daughter he'd abandoned before she was born. Stella. Isabel's voice came out strangled, barely recognizable. Go find your friends. Now. Mom, what? Stella turned, confusion crossing her face. I was just talking about my art. Now. Something in Isabel's tone, some edge of barely controlled panic, made Stella retreat. Her daughter's eyes narrowed with confusion, but she obediently disappeared into the crowd, glancing back twice with worried looks. Mrs. Rousseau, perceptive as ever, glanced between Isabel and the masked man. The temperature in the small gallery space had dropped 20 degrees. I should check on the catering. She vanished with practiced discretion, leaving them alone in the alcove. Isabel and the masked man stood separated by 3 feet and 17 years of silence. The party continued around them, oblivious. Someone laughed nearby. Music shifted from one haunting melody to another. The world kept turning while Isabel stopped completely. Isabel. He said her name like a prayer, like a confession, like an apology, all wrapped into 2 syllables. Don't. She stepped closer, voice low and deadly. Don't you dare say my name like you have any right to it. His hand moved toward the mask, fingers touching the edge. No. She grabbed his wrist, her fingers wrapping around the expensive fabric of his sleeve. I don't want to see your face. I don't want to hear your voice. I want you to tell me why you're here, why you're anywhere near my daughter, and then I want you gone. Out of this party, out of this town, out of our lives. She's my daughter too. The words fell like stones between them, heavy and irrevocable. Isabel laughed, a bitter sound that had no humor in it. You lost that right when you walked away. When you told me to take care of it and wired money like I was a problem to be solved. When you changed your number 3 days later and disappeared while I was still bleeding from bringing her into this world alone. I know. His voice cracked, splintered. Isabel, I know what I did. I've known every day for 17 years. Then why? She was shaking now, fury and anguish warring in her chest, threatening to tear her apart. Why are you here, dressed up like some anonymous philanthropist, pretending to be a good person while hiding behind that mask? He pulled away from her grip and removed the mask slowly, revealing the face that had haunted her dreams and nightmares both. Vincent De Luca. Time had changed him. Lines creased the corners of his eyes, those storm-gray eyes that Stella had inherited. Silver threaded through his dark hair, more on the sides, giving him a distinguished look he hadn't earned. A weathered quality to his face spoke of hard-won wisdom, of lessons learned too late. But the bone structure was the same. The full lips, the strong jaw, the small scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood fall. He looked successful. He looked tired. He looked like a stranger wearing the face of the boy she'd loved with desperate young intensity. I came back to Riverside 6 months ago. Vincent's voice was quiet, meant only for her. I inherited my father's estate after he passed. I didn't plan to stay. I was going to sell it, donate the money, disappear again. But then I saw her. His voice softened with wonder and pain. At the farmer's market, painting a street portrait for tourists. She was sitting in front of the coffee shop, this card table set up with her supplies, completely focused on capturing some little kid's smile. She looked so much like you, Isabel. The same way you used to get when you were creating something, that total absorption. But her eyes. He stopped, swallowed hard. Her eyes are mine. Stop. Isabel wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold the pieces together. You've been here 6 months. Watching us. That's not redemption, Vincent, that's stalking. I stayed away. He took a step toward her, hands raised like he was approaching something wounded and dangerous. I wanted to see that you were okay, that I hadn't completely destroyed your life when you abandoned us. Isabel supplied coldly. When you chose your architecture apprenticeship in Florence over your pregnant girlfriend? When you told me you were too young to be trapped? When you said that a baby would ruin both our futures? Each word was a knife she'd been sharpening for 17 years, and she watched them land, watched him flinch with each one. Yes. He whispered. All of that. I was a coward, Isabel. A selfish, terrified boy who thought his dreams were worth more than. He gestured helplessly. Then everything that actually mattered. And now what? Isabel demanded. You swoop in with scholarship money and think that makes up for 17 birthdays. 17 first days of school. Every nightmare, every fever, every time she asked why she didn't have a daddy like the other kids. Every school play and piano recital and art show and heartbreak I navigated alone while you were winning architecture awards in Europe. Nothing makes up for it. Vincent's eyes glistened, and Isabel hated that she noticed, hated that some traitorous part of her registered as pain. But I'm not that boy anymore. I spent 10 years building a career I thought would make me happy. I won awards, designed buildings across 3 continents, achieved every goal I'd sacrificed you for. The museum in Prague, the cultural center in Barcelona, the high-rise in Singapore. His voice turned bitter. And I was miserable. Empty. Every success felt hollow because I knew what I'd given up to get it. Every time someone congratulated me, all I could think about was the last thing you said to me. Do you remember? Isabel remembered. She'd never forgotten. I hope your buildings keep you warm at night, because nothing else ever will. She'd said it through tears, 6 months pregnant, standing in the doorway of the apartment they'd shared. He'd already packed. Already booked his flight. Already made his choice. I was wrong. Vincent's voice brought her back to the present. You were right, and I was catastrophically wrong. My buildings are beautiful and cold and empty. Just like my life. Spare me your midlife crisis redemption arc. Isabel turned away, unable to bear the rawness in his expression. You don't get to ease your guilt by playing hero now. You don't get to buy your way into her life with scholarships and anonymous donations. I'm not trying to ease anything. Vincent moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and unfamiliar. When I saw Stella, when I realized she was real, that she'd grown up to be this extraordinary person despite me, I knew I had to do something. Not to make myself feel better, but because she deserves every opportunity in the world. So I contacted Mrs. Rousseau anonymously, set up the scholarship fund, tried to help without interfering. Without revealing yourself, you mean? Isabel spun back to face him. Without facing the consequences of your choices. That's not courage, Vincent. That's still cowardice dressed up as charity. You're still hiding, just in a different way. The accusation hung between them as music and laughter continued in the larger rooms, oblivious to this reckoning happening in the shadows. You're right. Vincent admitted, and something in Isabel cracked at those words. The boy she'd loved had never admitted fault, had always defended his choices with passionate certainty. I should have contacted you first. I should have faced you, asked permission, begged forgiveness. But I was terrified you'd say no, and I couldn't bear the thought of being shut out completely. So you manipulated your way back in. Isabel felt tears threatening and fought them back furiously. She hadn't cried over Vincent DeLuca in 15 years, and she wasn't starting now. You hid your identity, inserted yourself into Stella's life without giving me a choice. Mom. The single word shattered the moment like glass. They both froze. Turned. Stella stood at the alcove's entrance, holding 2 cups of cider. Her painted whiskers were smudged as if she'd rubbed her face. Her gaze moved between them, confusion shifting to something else. Understanding, maybe. Or the terrible moment before understanding arrives. Why did you call him Vincent? Stella asked quietly. And why do you both look like someone died? Isabel's heart shattered. This wasn't how Stella was supposed to find out. Not at a Halloween party, not in anger and accusation, not like this. She'd imagined this conversation 1,000 times over the years. In her fantasies, she was calm, prepared. They were at home, in the safety of their kitchen. She had the right words ready, the perfect explanation that would make sense of the senseless. This was nothing like those fantasies. Stella. Vincent stepped forward hesitantly. Don't. Stella's voice was cold, so much older than her 16 years. She looked at Isabel, those gray eyes that were Vincent's eyes now filled with something Isabel had never seen there before. Betrayal. Mom. Who is this? Isabel wanted to lie. Wanted to protect her daughter from this pain. But the truth was written across both their faces, unmistakable and damning. This is Vincent DeLuca. The words tasted like ash. He's your biological father. The cider cups slipped from Stella's hands. They hit the hardwood floor with a splash of amber liquid that spread across the dark wood like spilled sunlight. No one moved to clean it up. No one moved at all. My father. Stella's voice was hollow, distant. My father who you told me wanted nothing to do with us. Who you said was gone and wouldn't be coming back. Who I stopped asking about when I was 8 because it made you cry. Stella, baby. Which one of you is lying? Stella demanded, and the accusation in those words, in those eyes, cut deeper than anything Vincent had done. You said he wanted nothing to do with me, Mom. But he's here. So either you lied then, or he's lying now, and I need to know which. I'm not lying. Isabel said desperately. Baby, he did leave. He did choose his career over us. He's been gone your whole life. Stella turned to Vincent. And you? Vincent met his daughter's gaze steadily, not hiding from the judgment there. Everything your mother said is true. I left before you were born. I sent money and told myself that was enough, that I was too young and my dreams were too important. I convinced myself I was doing what was best by staying away. He took a shaky breath. I was wrong. Monumentally, catastrophically wrong. And I've regretted it every day since. But you stayed away anyway. Stella's observation was devastating in its clarity. Until now. Why now? Because I saw you. Vincent's voice broke. And I couldn't stay away anymore. Because I'm selfish enough to want to know the extraordinary person you've become, even though I have no right to that knowledge. Stella looked between them, something hard and brittle in her expression. I'm 16 years old. I've lived my entire life without a father. Did either of you consider that maybe I should have been part of this conversation? That this decision wasn't just about your guilt or Mom's pain or whatever unresolved drama you two are playing out? The words struck both adults silent. I have a father-shaped hole in my life. Stella's voice trembled now, emotion breaking through the anger. Do you know what that's like? Watching everyone else's dad come to school events. Learning to dance with Uncle Marcus for the father-daughter dance at my friend's quinceanera because you weren't there. Making up stories about where you were because the truth, that you just didn't want me, was too pathetic to admit. Stella, that's not. Vincent started. And you. Stella turned to her mother, and the betrayal in her eyes made Isabel want to die. You kept every detail from me. No photos, no stories, no explanation beyond he's gone. You made him a ghost, and now he's real, and I don't know which is worse. Isabel reached for her daughter, but Stella stepped back, away from the spilled cider, away from both of them. I need air. Stella's voice was steady now, eerily calm. I need to think. I need to not be here right now. She disappeared into the crowd before either parent could stop her. Isabel started to follow, maternal instinct overriding everything else, but Vincent caught her arm gently. "Let me. Please. Let me talk to her." Isabel whirled on him. "Absolutely not. You don't get to swoop in and play concerned father now." "Isabel." Something in his voice stopped her. "You've carried this alone for 17 years. Let me help. Even if she hates me, especially if she hates me, she deserves to have her anger directed at the person who earned it." Isabel wanted to refuse. Wanted to protect Stella from further hurt. But exhaustion swamped her suddenly, a bone-deep weariness that came from 17 years of being the only parent, the only safety net, the only one making every decision alone. "Don't make it worse," she whispered. "I'll try not to." Vincent moved toward the exit, then paused, looking back. "For what it's worth, Isabel, you did an incredible job. She's smart and talented and brave and real. Everything good in her comes from you." Then he was gone, leaving Isabel alone with spilled cider and the ruins of the careful life she'd built. If you're still watching this, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to take a turn that will make you question everything you thought you knew about forgiveness. And drop a comment telling me, would you let someone back into your life after they abandoned you? Because Isabel is about to make a choice that will change everything. Isabel stood in the alcove for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Party guests passed by, some glancing at the spilled cider, one kind soul offering napkins to help clean up. She accepted them numbly, kneeling to soak up the liquid, grateful for something physical to do. Mrs. Rousseau appeared. "Isabel, dear, is everything all right?" "I saw Stella leave looking upset, and that gentleman followed her outside." "Everything's fine." The lie came automatically. "Just some unexpected news. I should go check on her." "Of course." Mrs. Rousseau's eyes were kind and knowing. "Take all the time you need. The silent auction doesn't close for another hour." Isabel found them 20 minutes later. She'd searched the main floor first, then the second floor gallery, before finally stepping out onto the mansion's expansive grounds. The garden was elaborately decorated for Halloween. String lights in orange and purple crisscrossed overhead. Carved pumpkins lined the paths. Fake tombstones created a whimsical cemetery in one corner. And there, on a stone bench beneath strands of lights, sat Stella and Vincent. His arm was around her shoulders in a gesture that looked both tentative and natural. Stella was crying, and Vincent was talking quietly, his head bent toward hers. Isabel hung back, hidden in the shadows near the house, listening. "It's not that I don't want to know you." Stella's voice drifted across the garden. "It's that I'm scared to. What if you leave again? What if I let myself care and you decide it's too hard or too complicated? What if I'm not enough to make you stay? That's a fair fear." Vincent's response was quiet, thoughtful. "I can't promise I'll be perfect, Stella. I've already proven I'm capable of making terrible choices. But I can promise that leaving you was the worst mistake of my life, and I won't make it again. Even if you never want a relationship with me, even if you need space or time or distance, I'm not disappearing. I'm staying in Riverside. I'm staying visible and accountable." "Why?" Stella asked simply. "Why now, after all this time?" "Because I finally grew up enough to realize that running from my mistakes doesn't make them disappear. It just makes me a coward." Vincent's voice was raw with emotion. "And because I looked at your painting tonight, that lonely lighthouse in the storm, and I recognized myself. Isolated by choice, surrounded by turbulent seas of my own making. I don't want to be that lighthouse anymore, Stella. I want to be part of something real." Stella was quiet for a long moment. The garden sounds filled the silence. Distant music from the party, wind rustling through trees, the soft hum of voices from other guests scattered across the grounds. "I don't know if I can call you Dad," Stella finally said. I haven't earned that. Vincent agreed immediately. I may never earn it. But if you'll let me try to be in your life in whatever capacity you're comfortable with, even if it's just the anonymous benefactor who funds your art supplies, I'll take it. I'll take anything you're willing to give. I'm angry. Stella said. You should be. And I need time. You can have all the time you need. And Mom gets final say on everything. Stella's voice was fierce with loyalty. She's the one who was there. She's the one who matters. She's the one who held my hair when I was sick and taught me to paint and sat through every terrible middle school concert. You don't get to just waltz in and override her. Vincent's voice was thick with emotion when he responded. Absolutely. Your mother is extraordinary, Stella. She raised you alone, gave you opportunities, kept you safe. Everything I should have done, she did. I'm not here to replace her or undermine her. I'm here to support whatever she decides is best for you. Isabel stepped out of the shadows then, unable to hide any longer. They both looked up, caught. Stella. Isabel said gently. Are you okay? Her daughter wiped her eyes, smearing the painted whiskers further. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what I am. That's fair. Isabel sat on Stella's other side, creating a careful balance. This is a lot to process. They sat in silence for a moment, three people connected by blood and betrayal and, perhaps, the fragile beginning of something like forgiveness. I think. Stella said finally. I'd like to go home now. But maybe we could talk again. With Mom there. Like, an actual conversation where everyone is honest and no one is hiding behind masks or scholarships or anything else. I'd like that very much. Vincent said quietly. Isabel met his eyes over their daughter's head, seeing the man he'd become in the ruins of the boy who'd left. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was a door opening, just a crack, letting light into 17 years of darkness. Sunday. Isabel heard herself say. 2 o'clock. Our house. You bring coffee, I'll make lunch, and Stella gets to decide what happens next. Vincent's expression crumbled with grateful relief. Thank you. Both of you. I know I don't deserve this. You don't. Isabel interrupted firmly. But maybe Stella does. Maybe she deserves the chance to know where she came from, who you are now, whether there's anything worth building. Not for you, Vincent. For her. For her. He agreed solemnly. As they walked back through the party toward the exit, Isabel felt the weight of 17 years beginning to shift. Not disappearing, that pain would always be part of her story. But redistributing, making room for new possibilities she hadn't dared imagine. Sunday came faster than Isabel expected. She spent Saturday cleaning the house, then uncleaning it because she didn't want Vincent to think she'd made special effort. She planned lunch, changed the menu 3 times, finally settled on simple sandwiches and soup. She rehearsed speeches in her head, practiced boundaries, prepared herself for every possible outcome. None of it helped. At 1:55, the doorbell rang. Isabel took a deep breath and opened it. Vincent stood on her porch, looking nervous and out of place, holding a cardboard carrier with 3 expensive coffees and a bag from the local bakery. You said bring coffee. He offered it like a peace offering. I didn't know what Stella liked, so I got options. Caramel macchiato, vanilla latte, and plain coffee. And I brought pastries. Apple turnovers. I remember you used to love them. That was 17 years ago, Vincent. People change. I know. He met her eyes. Have you changed? The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to address. Stella appeared behind her mother. Did someone say apple turnovers? The afternoon was awkward at first. They sat at Isabel's small kitchen table, the same table where she'd fed Stella breakfast every morning for 16 years. The same table where they'd done homework and art projects and had their most important conversations. Having Vincent there felt like a disruption in the natural order of things. So, Stella wrapped her hands around the caramel macchiato, which turned out to be exactly what she would have ordered. "Tell me about yourself. The real stuff, not the architect's superstar resume." Vincent set down his coffee. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." Stella leaned forward. "Where did you grow up? What's your family like? Do I have grandparents? Cousins? Why did you really leave? And don't give me the 'I was young and scared' speech. I want the real reason." Vincent looked at Isabel, as if asking permission. She nodded slightly. This was why they were here. For truth, however painful. "I grew up in Riverside," Vincent began. "In a house about 2 miles from here, actually. My father was a contractor, my mother a teacher. I have one sister, she lives in Oregon now. You do have a grandmother, though my father passed 5 years ago." He paused. "They never knew about you." "I never told them." "Why not?" Stella asked. "Because I was ashamed." Vincent's honesty was stark. "Not of you or your mother, but of myself. Of what I'd done. Telling them would have meant facing their disappointment, and I was already drowning in my own." For the next hour, Vincent answered every question Stella asked. He talked about his childhood, his dreams of becoming an architect, the apprenticeship offer that had seemed like everything he'd ever wanted. He talked about meeting Isabel at a college party, how she'd been the most alive person in the room. "You were painting." Vincent's eyes went distant with memory. "Someone had brought supplies as entertainment, and while everyone else was getting drunk, you were in the corner creating this incredible abstract piece. I asked what it was supposed to be, and you said it was the feeling of possibility." "I remember," Isabel said softly. "You told me that was pretentious." Vincent smiled slightly. "You told me that people who can't understand art usually call it pretentious. I was hooked after that." Stella looked between her parents, seeing pieces of a story she'd never known. "So what happened? If you loved each other, why did you leave?" The room fell silent. This was the heart of it, the question that mattered most. "I got pregnant 6 months after we started dating." Isabel took over the story, her voice steady. "We were both in college, both broke, both terrified. Vincent had just been offered the apprenticeship in Florence. It was prestigious, career-making. The kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice. I told myself I was doing what was best for both of us." Vincent's voice was heavy. "If I went to Florence, I could build a career, make real money. I thought I could come back in a few years, provide for you both properly. I convinced myself that staying would mean resenting you both eventually, that leaving was the noble choice. So you sent money and disappeared." Stella's observation was matter of fact. "Yes." Vincent didn't flinch from it. "I told myself the money was helping, that it was enough. I threw myself into work, into success, into becoming someone important. And for a while, it worked. I was too busy to think about what I'd lost." "When did that stop working?" Stella asked. "About 5 years ago." Vincent leaned back in his chair. "I was in Milan, receiving an award for a museum I'd designed. Standing on stage, looking out at all these people celebrating my achievement, and all I could think about was that I had no one to share it with. No family, no real friends. Just colleagues and professional contacts." He looked at Stella. "I started wondering about you. Whether your mother had remarried, whether you even knew I existed. I hired a private investigator." Isabel stiffened. "You what?" "I never contacted you," Vincent said quickly. "I just wanted to know if you were okay." The investigator sent photos, basic information. I learned that you'd stayed in Riverside, that you worked as a graphic designer, that you'd raised our daughter alone. That was when the guilt really set in. So why didn't you come back then? Isabel demanded. Because I was a coward. Vincent said simply. I told myself too much time had passed, that showing up would do more harm than good. I convinced myself that you were better off without me. It wasn't until my father died and I came back for the funeral that I realized I'd been lying to myself all along. The truth hung in the air between them. Stella broke the silence. I want to be angry at you. Part of me is angry at you. But I also kind of get it. Not the leaving part, that was objectively terrible. But the being scared part. I'm 16, and I'm terrified about my future, about making the wrong choices. I can't imagine how scary it must be when the choice affects other people. That's very mature of you. Vincent said. More mature than I was at 22. Don't mistake understanding for forgiveness. Stella's voice was firm. I understand why you left. That doesn't mean I'm okay with it. And it definitely doesn't mean we're just going to be one big happy family now. I don't expect that. Vincent said. I'm just grateful for the chance to know you at all. The conversation continued through lunch and into the afternoon. They talked about Stella's art, her dreams of attending art school. Vincent offered advice about applying to programs in Europe, connections he could provide. Isabel started to object, then stopped herself. This was part of letting him in, letting him contribute. As the sun began to set, Vincent prepared to leave. Can I come back? He asked at the door. Maybe next weekend. I could take you both to dinner, or we could do this again. Whatever you're comfortable with. Stella looked at her mother. Isabel saw the hope in her daughter's eyes, the longing for something she'd never had. Next Sunday. Isabel agreed. Same time. But Vincent, you need to understand something. If you're going to do this, you're all in. No disappearing when it gets hard. No putting your career first. No more running. I understand. Vincent met her eyes. I'm not running anymore, Isabel. From anything. After he left, Stella turned to her mother. Are you okay with this? I don't know. Isabel admitted. Part of me wants to slam the door and never let him back. Part of me thinks you deserve to know your father. And a very small part of me wonders if people can actually change. What do you think? Stella asked. Can they? Isabel looked out the window at Vincent's car pulling away. I guess we're about to find out. Over the next few months, Vincent became a regular presence in their lives. Sunday dinners became a ritual. He attended Stella's art shows, asked thoughtful questions about her work, provided introductions to gallery owners he knew. Slowly, carefully, he built a relationship with his daughter. His relationship with Isabel was more complicated. They were cordial, co-parenting effectively. But the hurt between them ran deep, 17 years of accumulated pain that couldn't be erased by a few months of good behavior. Until one night in January when everything shifted. Isabel was working late, finishing a design project on deadline. Stella was at a friend's house. The doorbell rang at 9 p.m., unexpected and alarming. She opened the door to find Vincent, soaking wet from the rain, looking devastated. She's getting married. He said without preamble. My sister. She's getting married in June, and she wants Stella to be in the wedding. As family. She wants to introduce her to everyone as my daughter. Isabel stepped aside to let him in. That's good, isn't it? Stella meeting your family? Vincent walked past her into the living room, running his hands through his wet hair. My mother called me after my sister told her. She was crying, Isabel. Crying because she just found out she has a granddaughter she never knew about. 17 years of missed memories. And it's my fault. He turned to face her. I've been going to therapy. Did you know that? Since November. Trying to understand why I ran, why I kept running. And today my therapist asked me a question I couldn't answer. What question? She asked if I'd ever apologized to you. Really apologized, not just acknowledged what I did wrong. And I realized I haven't. I've said I was wrong, I've said I regret it, but I've never actually said I'm sorry. Vincent's voice broke. I'm sorry, Isabel. I'm so deeply, profoundly sorry for what I did to you. For leaving when you needed me most. For missing Stella's entire childhood. For making you carry everything alone. For the nights you probably cried yourself to sleep. For every time Stella asked about her father and you had to explain my absence. For 17 years of birthdays and Christmases and ordinary Tuesdays that I threw away. Tears streamed down his face. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't give you back the time I stole. But I need you to know that I see it now. All of it. Everything you sacrificed, everything you endured, everything you built without me. You are the most extraordinary person I've ever known, and I was too young and stupid to realize it until it was too late. Isabel stood frozen, watching this man she'd loved and hated and tried to forget fall apart in her living room. I don't know what you want me to say. Her voice trembled. I don't want you to say anything. Vincent wiped his face. I just needed you to hear it. You deserved to hear it 17 years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm sorry. They stood in silence, rain pattering against the windows. I hated you. Isabel said quietly. For years, I hated you so much it was like poison inside me. Do you know what it's like to love someone and hate them at the same time? Vincent shook his head. It's exhausting. Isabel continued. I had to let it go eventually, for my own sanity and for Stella. I had to forgive you, not because you deserved it, but because I needed to move on. You forgave me? Vincent's voice was barely a whisper. I forgave the boy who left. Isabel said. I'm still deciding about the man who came back. What can I do? Vincent asked. To earn your trust. Your forgiveness. What do I have to do? You can't earn it, Vincent. That's not how this works. Isabel moved to the window, looking out at the rain. You can just keep showing up. Keep being there for Stella. Keep doing the work. And maybe eventually, the hurt will matter less than the present. She turned to face him. But you need to know something. I'm not that girl you left anymore. I'm not going to fall back into your arms and pretend the last 17 years didn't happen. If you're here hoping we can be a family in that way, you're going to be disappointed. I'm not hoping for that. Vincent said, though something in his eyes suggested otherwise. I'm just hoping we can find a way to coexist peacefully. For Stella. For Stella. Isabel agreed. But as Vincent left that night, as Isabel watched his car disappear into the rain, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly. Not trust. But maybe the beginning of possibility. The story could have ended there. With tentative peace, with slow rebuilding, with a fractured family finding their way towards something resembling wholeness. But life rarely follows the script we write for it. In March, Stella was accepted to the Rhode Island School of Design with a full scholarship. In April, she won a prestigious national art competition. And in May, she sat her parents down for a conversation. I want you both there for graduation. She said firmly. Together. Sitting together. Acting like parents who can be in the same room without everyone being weird about it. We can do that. Isabel said. And for my graduation party, I want you both to host it. Together. Here at the house, but with Dad helping plan and pay for stuff. Vincent looked at Isabel. If that's okay with your mom. It's fine. Isabel said, though fine was an oversimplification of the complicated tangle of emotions she felt. Planning the party forced them together more than they'd been since Vincent's return. Phone calls about catering turned into conversations about Stella's childhood. Discussions about decorations led to shared memories of their own graduation. One afternoon, going through old photos for a slideshow, Vincent picked up a picture of infant Stella. She was so tiny. He said softly. I can't believe I missed this. Missed all of it. Isabel looked over his shoulder at the photo. She had colic for the first 3 months. Screamed for hours every night. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I should have been there. Vincent said. Not just should have. I wish I had been. I wish I could go back and shake some sense into my 22-year-old self. Me too. Isabel admitted. But we can't. We can only move forward. Vincent set down the photo and looked at her. Can I ask you something? And you can tell me it's none of my business. What? Have you ever thought about what might have happened if I'd stayed? If I'd made a different choice that day? Isabel was quiet for a long moment. All the time. Especially in those early years. I'd create these alternate timelines in my head where you came back, where we raised her together, where we were happy. And now? Vincent asked. Do you still think about it? Now I think that the life I built, the one where I raised Stella alone, made me who I am. Made her who she is. And I like who we are. So maybe it happened exactly the way it needed to. Even though it hurt. Even though it hurt. Isabel confirmed. Pain doesn't make something wrong, Vincent. Sometimes it just makes it real. Graduation day arrived sunny and perfect. Isabel and Vincent sat side by side in the bleachers, watching Stella walk across the stage to receive her diploma. When they called her name, they both stood, applauding until their hands hurt. At the party that evening, surrounded by friends and family who'd known Stella her entire life, Vincent gave a speech. Most of you know that I wasn't part of Stella's life until recently. That my absence was my choice, and my greatest regret. I can't get back the years I lost. Can't erase the damage I caused. But I can stand here today and tell you that Stella Morgan is the most remarkable person I've ever known. And that is entirely because of her mother. He turned to Isabel. Isabel raised our daughter alone. She worked multiple jobs, sacrificed her own dreams, gave Stella every opportunity one should have helped provide. She is the true hero of this story. I'm just incredibly grateful she's giving me the chance to be part of it now. Later, as guests mingled and music played, Stella pulled her parents together for a photo. Smile. She instructed. And could you maybe not look like you're at a hostage situation? Isabel laughed despite herself. Vincent's arms settled naturally around her shoulders as they posed. The camera flashed, capturing a moment that months ago would have been impossible. After the last guest left and Stella went upstairs exhausted but happy, Isabel and Vincent cleaned up in comfortable silence. Thank you. Vincent said as they packed away leftover food. For today. For all of this. For giving me a chance I definitely didn't deserve. You're welcome. Isabel said. And Vincent? That speech was really kind. You didn't have to say all that. I meant every word. They finished cleaning and found themselves on the front porch, neither quite ready for the evening to end. I've been thinking. Vincent said carefully. About moving back to Riverside permanently. I've been commuting from the city, but with Stella going to college, I thought maybe I should be closer. In case she needs anything. Or in case you need anything. Isabel raised an eyebrow. Vincent DeLuca offering to help. Will wonders never cease? I'm serious. He turned to face her. I want to be present. Not just for Stella, but to support you too. We're in this together now, whether we planned it or not. Just don't expect more than I can give. Isabel said quietly. I'm not ready for anything beyond co-parenting. May never be ready. I understand. Vincent said. And I'm okay with that. You've already given me more than I deserved. As Vincent drove away that night, Isabel sat on her porch steps, processing everything that had happened since that Halloween party 8 months ago. Her life had been predictable, safe, controlled. And then Vincent had walked back in, bringing chaos and possibility and questions she'd buried long ago. She still didn't know if she'd fully forgiven him. Still wasn't sure if he deserved the place he was carving out in their lives. But she knew that Stella was happier. That the weight she'd carried alone was now shared. That perhaps, eventually, the good might outweigh the pain. It was enough. For now, it was enough. Before we wrap up this story, I need to know something from you. Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Someone who didn't deserve your forgiveness but needed it anyway? Drop that comment below, and while you're at it, share this video with someone who needs to hear that redemption is possible, even when it seems impossible. Because here's the truth. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying that pain alone. And sometimes, just sometimes, it opens doors you thought were permanently closed. The autumn after Stella left for college, Isabel and Vincent fell into a new rhythm. Weekly phone calls about their daughter turned into occasional coffee meetings. Coffee meetings turned into longer conversations about life, work, the people they'd become. One evening in October, almost a year to the day since Vincent had reappeared at that Halloween party, Isabel invited him over for dinner. Just dinner. She specified. Nothing more. Just dinner. Vincent agreed. But as they sat across from each other at the same kitchen table where they'd navigated so many difficult conversations, something shifted. Do you remember when we were 20? Isabel asked suddenly. We used to talk about opening a design firm together. You'd do the architecture, I'd do the graphics and branding. The DeLuca Morgan Design Group. Vincent smiled at the memory. We had the whole thing planned out. We were so naive. Isabel said. Thought we could conquer the world. Maybe we were. Vincent agreed. But maybe that kind of naivety is necessary when you're young. If we'd known how hard it would be, we might never have tried anything. They talked late into the night, reminiscing and rebuilding. Not the relationship they'd had, that was gone forever. But something new, something built on honesty and hard-earned wisdom. As Vincent prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Isabel, can I ask you something? What? If I'd made a different choice 17 years ago, do you think we would have made it? Or would we have ended up resenting each other anyway? Isabel considered the question seriously. I think we would have struggled. We were so young, so unprepared. But I also think we loved each other enough that we would have tried. And maybe that would have been enough. She met his eyes. But that's not the life we got, Vincent. This is. And I'm finally okay with that. Me too. Vincent said softly. This, right now, being able to talk to you like this, being part of Stella's life, it's more than I ever thought I'd have. I'm grateful for it. After he left, Isabel stood at her window, watching the street where his taillights disappeared. It was supposed to be a Halloween party, a simple obligation fulfilled for her daughter's sake. Instead, it became the night masks came off and truth spilled out. The night 3 people discovered that sometimes the scariest transformations aren't the ones we costume ourselves for. They're the real ones that happen when we stop hiding and finally face what we've been running from. The ghosts of the past don't always stay buried. Sometimes they show up at parties, wearing simple black masks, carrying years of regret and fragile hope. And sometimes, if we're brave enough, we let them prove they're not ghosts anymore. Just broken people, trying to become whole. Isabel didn't know what the future held. Didn't know if she'd ever fully trust Vincent, or if the wounds he'd inflicted would ever completely heal. But she knew that forgiveness wasn't a destination. It was a journey you took one step at a time, one conversation at a time, one choice at a time. And for the first time in 17 years, she was ready to take that journey. Not because Vincent deserved it, but because she deserved peace. And maybe, just maybe, because second chances aren't about earning them. They're about being brave enough to offer them. And wise enough to accept them when they're given. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about your own life, your own choices, your own capacity for forgiveness, then do me a favor. Subscribe to Mr. Stevens Stories for more powerful narratives about love, loss, redemption, and the messy beautiful reality of being human. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to face your mistakes and try to make things right. And remember, we all wear masks sometimes. The question is, are we brave enough to take them off and show who we really are underneath? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.